got 25 minutes. We gotta go.
Hey!
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Wednesday, everyone. It's another Wednesday. Yeah, hump day. And we are super excited to have you with us. For those of you that are new, if this is your first time on Say That channel, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat so we can see you and shout you out. We love saying hello to all of our new first timers. And if you are, a member of Say That Nation and this is not your first time, welcome to you too. We're super happy to have you on. Go ahead and put a 2 in the chat so we can shout you out as well. We're excited. This is another Wednesday where we get to talk to you guys about our favorite subject, the ugly come up of entrepreneurship. So we've all heard those stories, right? Where people start off with nothing and then have massive success. But it's like, what happens in the middle? What happens during the ugly come up? Well, that is what we are here to talk about. So I'm really excited because we know that your attention span is short. We know that. So we give ourselves 25 minutes to answer the topic of the day. And when we run out of time, oh no, either we'll go into overtime or you got to come back next week and hear what we've got in store for you then. But please don't forget to smash that subscribe button, hit the like, the notification bell.
Guy.
All the things.
Like, what is that thing? It's like a thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up.
There you go. And all that does is it tells the algorithm within YouTube that we are providing you with valuable information and content, so that way they will continue to spread the good news to other folks. So with that being said, let's see what today's topic is.
Today's topic?
Are you one health issue away from losing your business? Great question.
Yeah,
I would say a lot of people are one health issue away from doing a lot of things, not just their business, right? So we are not going to be the only ones to answer today's topic question. We're really excited to bring to you guys our guest today. She is a CEO, a founder, a speaker, a leader, a non-for-profit organizer. I can't wait for you guys to meet Stephanie Berman.
Our next guest.
There she is.
Steph, what's going on?
We're so excited to have you on here. And we know a little bit about your story, but for those who are brand new, Stephanie, please tell them a little bit about your story, about how you became the money coach.
So that is, like you said, a bit of a story. So I graduated from college in 2007, in the middle of that kind of recession, got married that summer. My first job was working at McDonald's. I lasted 10 months, but there I was working at McDonald's with a bachelor's degree and very little self-confidence. And so I didn't know really how to enter the workforce or anything like that. I ended up quitting McDonald's, worked at another little, mom and pop fast food place for 2 months. And then the economy was bad, so they let me go. And then I didn't work again for 5 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I realized, we really do need to get our income up somehow. My husband was working full time during that time, but I was like, what do I do? And I actually realized that I had skills to teach piano. A friend of mine mentioned that her daughter wanted to learn piano, flute, and recorder. And I looked at her, I'm like, I play all of those. Do you want me to teach her? I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And she said yes. So I taught her daughter piano for a few years. And along the way, I actually built up my piano studio to 30 students. And then a couple of years before the pandemic happened, 2018, I moved over to the money coaching space. And then I was doing both for like 2 years going into the pandemic. And that was a challenge, switching hats constantly from teaching piano to money coaching and back and on the same day. And at the same time, I was dealing with health issues. So becoming a money coach has helped me to help other people prepare better for health crises and one of my favorite kind of groups to work with is those small business owners who don't have a plan for their money, either their business finances or their personal finances. And I like to work with them so that we can get them to a place where both are solid. They can pay themselves a set salary. Not to brag or anything, but I've got enough in my bank account that if I didn't land any new clients or I had to suddenly close my business, I could still pay myself the same amount I'm paying myself, this Friday, every 2 weeks until the end of the year. And that's what I want for other small business owners too.
That's an amazing thing. And I'm sure there are plenty of business owners who are on here thinking, I want that. I would like that, please. So now you guys all can understand why Stephanie is the perfect person to answer today's question. So let's get into it. Are you one health issue away from losing your business? Talk to us about what you've seen, maybe even your personal experience about how close people really are.
Yeah. So it can be a huge challenge, especially for solopreneurs, because they don't have anybody else to lean on. A lot of my small business clients that I've worked with have actually been single women. So they're dependent on themselves for their income. They don't have another person to lean on. And they don't have a plan for how they're pulling their salary out of their business. They're literally just pulling it out, whenever they need money on the personal side. They'll go and pull $1,000 out of their business, but they have no idea if their business can afford for them to pull the $1,000.
Yeah.
They have no idea how long that $1,000 is going to last on the personal side. And really, you can take good care of your health and be healthy, but you have no idea if you're going to get hit by a car tomorrow or, diagnosed with something all of a sudden. I was sick for most of the summer of 2022 with what I now know is like COVID. So that was rough because I was like constantly having to reschedule clients and try to balance, rescheduling clients with adding new clients and not knowing, was I going to be able to coach that day or not? Because am I going to be coughing too much or am I going to feel okay? And so that was a really big challenge that I had in the midst of dealing with even other health issues I haven't mentioned yet. So yeah, it's really easy to get to be one health issue away from losing your business. And if your business finances aren't solid, that puts you in an even more tenuous position.
Well, you want me? Can I? Oh, thank you. So, no. That makes so much sense because just even the example you gave of pulling money out when you don't, I don't want to say is it have a sense of knowing that you need to have the money separate, but how are you coaching people to? Is it as simple as just having a formula and knowing, hey, if I put this much dollar in, this much we set aside, it is the business's money? Or how do people thread that line of saying, hey, if there's an emergency that comes up, I do need this money to use in my personal life and the business has to take a step back right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I'm coaching my clients, I do use a set system to help them figure out how to grow their business, how to set aside money. It's called Profit First. There's a book. The author's name is Mike Michalowicz. He's fantastic. I love his system because it makes it so clear how to set up your business finances so that you can pay yourself a regular salary on a set day or two each month or weekly. It really depends on the client, what they want to do for their business, how often they want to pay themselves, stuff like that. So Profit First is great because it teaches you to set aside a certain percentage of your business income specifically for salary, a certain percentage specifically for expenses, a certain percentage specifically for profit, and a certain percentage specifically for taxes, because that's another thing a lot of business owners don't adequately prepare themselves for is that tax bill at the end of the year. And so in order to have and run a successful business, you need all of these pieces. You need to be rewarding yourself with profit just for owning your business. You need to be paying yourself a solid salary that can support you on the personal side. So as like I mentioned, I've been coaching since 2018. I've coached a lot of business owners along the way, but I'm even still refining my process. When I get that solopreneur that comes to me and says, my business finances are a mess and my personal finances are a mess, I'm starting to find that it's easier to actually start with the business finances.
Okay.
And let's get your business finances in order first, because it's often a simpler process. There's less line items in the budget to be concerned about. And then we can really figure out, okay, how much can you take out of the business for your salary? And then we take that over to the personal side and say, okay, if you can only take out $2,000 a month, what are you going to do on the personal side? Like, how does that change the picture of what you're trying to do? Whether they have racked up a ton of credit card debt on the personal side that they now need to pay off, but they have to live on $2,000, but their rent is like $3,000. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So
this makes so much sense.
This is really, really good. And so I just want to let anyone who's out there who's watching and you have a question or a comment, if you're finding anything valuable, please put that in the comments so that way we can see your question. We can make sure that Stephanie answers the question for you. So I just wanted to say that really quickly, because I'm more than certain people are abuzz with all sorts of personal questions that they don't have. So
one that,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, Jay. No, well, one that comes up for me is, I would imagine then as your company grows, the formula would shift a little bit, or is that not the case?
It is the case, actually.
Okay.
I don't know what the percentages for the larger companies are off the top of my head, and I know they've actually shifted since you wrote the original book too.
Okay.
I'm sure you can find them online, but I know, like, for example, as your business grows, I think it's like the owner's comp starts at like 50% for businesses under, I think it's 250,000. Sorry.
Okay.
And then as your business grows above 250,000, that owner's comp percentage actually goes down, but the profit percentage goes up. So as you're working, because conceivably as your business is getting bigger, you're actually working in the business a little bit less.
Yeah.
And so you become more of an owner then, rather than an employee. So you get more of your income from the business from the profit percentage than from the owner's comp.
That makes sense.
Interesting. Okay, so I have a couple of personal questions.
Sure.
One, there are a ton of online coaches now, right? And so you figure that the overhead is probably not so high, like a brick and mortar per se. What does that look like for them? Is it the same setup where you're like, this is how much your expense? Like, how would you coach someone like that with identifying what's business, what's theirs, et cetera?
Yeah, so that's the great thing about Profit First is those percentages are a little bit flexible. I mean, obviously you don't want to change your tax percentage too drastically, or you're going to be short at the end of the year. But your expense percentage and your owner's comp, you can play with those a little bit. But I would say, I'm putting about 30% away for expenses. And it's been a challenge for me to spend up to that amount at times. But like this year, I'm going to 2 conferences, one in Denver and one in Anaheim. And so that's taking a big chunk of my money to save for, whether that's the flights or the hotel or the conference registration fees. So, and really that 30%, Mike set that 30%, as I understand it, high enough that he could keep the tax percentage to the 15 or 20 it is.
Yeah.
So that you're not paying an immense amount in taxes, but you're still able to pay yourself, out of that 50% salary chunk. I think it's 50% salary, 30% expenses, 15% taxes, and 5% profit, I think, are the ideal percentages. If I remember correctly, I think that adds 8 to 100.
Yeah, it does.
And so by going by those percentages, you're able to pay yourself, hopefully, based on what you're charging in your business, you should be able to pay yourself a living wage, draw a little bit of profit off the business, pay your expenses, and get ready for taxes.
This is so key, because then this obviously helps a lot of people who may overshoot on budgets and things in their initial years going out. Because a lot of people just, well, I can't say this is a generalization, but I would say, given some of the statistics that we find on businesses closing, I know a lot of it comes from people with poor budgets. Like, yeah, some of it is, they didn't generate enough income. But what you just said is key, because I know a lot of people where the idea is like, let's just keep spending and or investing in the business, but you're doing it at such a high rate, or you're not moving at a pace that keeps up with what you're talking about, which is like seeing if you're making enough on the outside or on the other side to warrant some of these investments.
Yeah. So the subtitle on Profit First is transforming your business from a cash-eating monster to a money-making machine.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And so it's talking about his method is really based on growing your business at the speed of cash and not taking on a lot of debt. So making sure that you're operating your business within that 30%. But like you were saying, when a lot of people have kind of blown their budgets at the beginning. And so, they may find that their expense percentage to start may be way up at like 75%. And if that's the case, you've got then like 45% to cut from other areas or out of your expenses. And you've got to balance those percentages at the beginning so that they equal 100%. So yes, the target percentage for a business that's less than $250,000 a year may be 5%. But if somebody's already operating their business and they run the numbers and discover that, well, they haven't been paying themselves a profit at all, they have to set their profit expense or percentage at 1%.
Until they build it up. Yeah.
Up to the 5% by cutting expenses, making sure they're only paying 15% in taxes. Maybe they have to cut their own salary because they've realized that they've been paying themselves too much. And Mike walks you to how to do all of those calculations for the first time.
That was something that came to mind for me about people who pay. I literally just had that thought, like, oh, I wonder if people who are just not overpaying themselves as well, What were you going to say, Jay? Sorry.
So, yes. And so I have two thoughts. One thought is, let's get into a little bit into the personal side, because I know you do the coaching, right? So like, okay, I have two thoughts. One is, what is it like when you're coaching people personally and they're looking at their personal finances? Do you find that this is a mindset shift that needs to take place? Like, what do you feel like is the hardest thing to work with them? And then my second question, no, that's it. Let's do that.
Yeah. I would say for my ideal clients, mindset is somewhat of an issue. I would say my sweet spot as a coach is working with the numbers first and then the mindset. So because the numbers don't lie. Like, you have to account for in the system that I use with my clients, you have to account for where every dollar is going in some form or fashion. You can be super broad or super granular, it doesn't matter. But in order to be prepared in case you have a health issue or some other emergency, you've got to know where your money is going. And so sometimes it is a mindset issue. I've seen clients where they grew up in a fairly wealthy family. And so they were used to one sort of standard of living. And now they're out on their own and they've got their own salary, but it isn't necessarily enough to sustain that standard of living that they're used to. So there can be a little bit of a mindset shift to be like, oh my goodness, I can't keep doing this. I've got to do this, make that change. There's a mindset shift of, oh, I really can do this. A lot of my ideal clients, because they're neurodivergent, they come in thinking that they can't budget. Their brain is too busy to work like that. And it's my job to help them see, no, wait, I really can do this. So yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Oh man, that's awesome. I really appreciate that. Okay, so my other question was, let's talk about some of the health issues that you see. What have you seen in your personal experience? And you may want to start with your own and then go on to others, but I'm curious to know sometimes people just need to hear like real life examples of like what could be the thing that like the health wise that could totally take somebody out the game. So what are some of the things that you have seen?
Well, like I alluded to at the very beginning of my story, I didn't work for 5 years due to self-esteem issues, which now I can like look and say that was undiagnosed neurodivergence. I didn't know how my brain worked or how to work with my brain. So that can keep people out of the workforce or take them out of the workforce. There could be pain issues, whether that's stuff like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome or stuff like that. It could be gynecologic pain issues. That's pretty common for women. 40% of women will have a complex gynecologic problem at some point in their lifetime. Most of those will cause pain. So that's gonna, potentially take somebody out of the workforce. That was part of what was going on for me too in those 5 years that I was out of the workforce. Wow. And then as I started my own business, I was, and this is maybe a plus or an encouragement to somebody who is dealing with some sort of pain issue that's keeping them from working, is starting my own business was the best thing I ever did for myself. I knew I needed to be fiscally responsible to make sure that I could continue my business if I ran into, I couldn't work for a period of time. But by working for myself, I'm able to pretty much set my own schedule. I can decide how many clients I want to take on at any one time. I can decide, hey, I just don't have the energy to show up for work today and move people around to different spots on my calendar. So I've seen that. That's probably the biggest thing. A surgery recovery is another one I've seen a lot.
Surgery recovery.
People are like, oh my goodness, I'm suddenly scheduled for having this surgery in 6 weeks and I don't know how I'm going to pay myself because I'm not going to be able to see clients for 3 months. Like, wow. You've got to prepare for that. And of course, there's things like short-term disability. But like FMLA, you can't qualify for that unless your employer has like 50 employees or something like that. So like even my husband, when I had my hysterectomy, he didn't qualify for FMLA because his employer didn't have enough employees and he's not even working for himself. So it's not just the self-employed business owners who need to be financially prepared to have to take some time off work. It's anybody, you've got to have that emergency safety net in place in some form or fashion.
Man, I feel like you are preaching right now.
I feel like I'm preaching too.
So many people need to hear this message because that, to me, I'm glad you brought out some of these examples because I think some people don't even think. They're like, oh, but I'm healthy. Like nothing could ever happen. Or like, actually, I am planning a surgery, right? But not like, oh man, but what if this recovery from the surgery takes me out for longer, right? Like, I'm so glad that you pointed out some of those examples. It's really, really helpful.
I was just talking to a gal yesterday who hasn't been able to work in a year because she's dealing with some pelvic pain issues. And she has been out on a leave of absence, but as soon as she only gets a year leave of absence, and then she has to decide, am I coming back or not? And she hasn't been able to solve her pain issues. So she's likely not going to be able to go back, which means she's going to lose her medical insurance. And what can I do now? And that's really hard.
And, and I think not talked about enough, right? Like, I guess everybody just like hopes that things will be fine. It's fine.
Yeah, they'll stick their heads in the sand and think, everything's fine, everything's good, nothing bad's ever going to happen to me. And then they wake up one morning and they're in pain and the pain never goes away. And they have to figure out, okay, what am I doing now? How do I deal with this? And that's what I ended up doing and that's almost exactly what happened to me. Like one morning I woke up, I was in pain and the pain has literally never gone away. And it's been 13 years.
Wow. So
13 years.
Yeah.
My, I want to know, because you mentioned that you were doing the piano teaching, call it coaching, the piano teaching while you started your money coaching business. Can you talk to us a little bit? Because we love hearing, not maybe even what led specifically to you going, I'm going to start doing this as a business. I'm going to start coaching people, because it seems like you stumbled into the music teaching because of your friend. What was it that led you into money coaching, if you can remember?
Yeah, no, I can. My husband, when we first got married, would tell people that he married me because I was really good at budgeting.
Smart man, right?
At the time, let's give him some grace. At the time, he was also undiagnosed neurodivergent, so saying some weird things wasn't necessarily unusual. And then over the years, I kind of helped people, friends here and there with their budgets. I helped a couple piano parents with their budgets. I helped a piano with her budget when she was graduating from high school. And then helped my sister with her budget a couple times over the years. And then I discovered that money coaching was a thing and I could actually make it a career. And I'm like, oh, I'm way better at that than I am teaching piano.
Oh, well done.
So I didn't exactly dive in feet first. It took me about a year. And then Christmas of 2018, like half of my piano studio quit. And ironically, some of them financial reasons.
That's the time.
Let me finish. I ended up at that point. It was like, okay, I had my money coaching training by then. I'm like, okay, let's dive in. So in 2019, I really hit the ground running on that, which turned out to be a really good thing. We all know it happened in 2020.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, and that's where I was going originally, because I was remembering the timeline, and I don't know why this is never, but I thought, given what happened with the pandemic and just even us talking about health issues, what you're teaching is paramount to what's come about due to the pandemic. Yeah. And actually, man, we've had conversations about this with our whole school system. But what Janelle brought up earlier, it makes me think that's exactly it. We aren't being taught to be prepared for these things. So you're being taught to go out and seek salary or seek some form of, financial independence. But beyond that, what do we do? And I know we're out of time, so I'm kind of belabored, but
so
show people your contact.
We need to have you back on, Stephanie, because I feel like we just scratched the surface. We definitely are going to have you back on. So let's make it next week. We're going to bring Stephanie back on, everyone, next week for part 2 of the conversation.
Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. No, because she's dropping all sorts of knowledge and information. And so this is really, really helpful. If you got a lot of value out of today, please go ahead and put that in the content. Let us know. Let Stephanie know. So that way it helps us. It supports our mission.
Say that. And here is, for anybody who wants to connect with Stephanie, here's her website. I'll put up her IG as well. Mm-hmm. And then I know we have all these in the description, and then her email address.
She's a real person. She will respond to you.
Absolutely. I have some openings for new clients right now. So if anybody
say that, jump in.
If anybody needs help, let's do it.
Absolutely.
And Jeannie says, thank you, Stephanie. So you are very much appreciated.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So make sure you guys connect with Stephanie offline. And make sure you tune in next week so we can hear the rest of what she has to share with us. But until we see you guys then, as always, remember, you deserve the good life. Say that. We'll see you guys.